Netflix's new Korean series, Teach You a Lesson, became one of the most watched and most talked about shows from its very first days. But is this series really that good, or did it only become a trending topic because of its controversial subject? Today, we're going to talk about what the show is about, whether the story is truly engaging, whether the characters work, whether the action scenes are strong, what critics and viewers liked, what they criticized, and most importantly, whether Teach You a Lesson is actually worth watching. If you enjoy intense Korean shows like The Glory, Weak Hero, or Bloodhounds, by the end of this video, you'll clearly understand whether this series is the right choice for you. The series became one of those shows that divided viewers from the moment it was released, while also creating a lot of curiosity. Because this series does not begin like a typical school drama. From the very first episode, it directly confronts us with bullying, violence inside schools, helpless teachers, and students who are harshly ignored by the system. The main idea of the series is actually very simple but effective. When order completely collapses in schools, when normal methods no longer work, and when no one stands with the victimized students, a special team steps in. This team is not made up of the kind of teachers or ordinary inspectors we're used to seeing. They are much harsher, more direct, and more rule-breaking characters, the kind we would usually see in action dramas. At the center of the story is Na Hwa-jin. Played by Kim Moo-yul, this character has become one of the most talked about parts of the series. Many critics have found the character's screen presence powerful, because the moment Hwa-jin enters a scene, the pace of the show changes. Instead of a silent system, we get a character who takes direct action. Lee Sung-min, Ki-joo, and Ji-hoon also play important roles in the series. Lee Sung-min's presence, in particular, has been seen in many reviews as one of the elements that raises the show's sense of quality. Because even when the series sometimes moves in an exaggerated and comic book-like direction, the actors manage to make this world feel serious. One of the most praised aspects of Teach You a Lesson is definitely its pacing. Many viewers and critics say the show does not start in a boring way, does not drag out its subject too much, and keeps the audience watching with a new problem in every episode. So this is not a slow-burn drama that requires patience. From the very first minutes, it has a structure that makes you say, okay, something is going to happen here. While the series deals with the theme of school bullying, it does not present it only through emotional drama. It tells the story through action, tension, a sense of revenge, and sometimes an almost comic book-style feeling of justice. That is why it stands in a different place from shows like The Glory, which are built more directly around trauma and revenge. Teach You a Lesson offers a faster, harsher, and more direct viewing experience. The thing that stands out most in the positive reviews from critics is this: the series gives viewers a strong sense of satisfaction. After seeing the helplessness of bullied characters, the appearance of someone who stands by them naturally creates a strong sense of relief for the audience. This aspect has been found especially effective by viewers who enjoy stories centered around school bullying. But the criticism of the series also comes from exactly this point. Some critics think the show builds its sense of justice through methods that are too harsh. In other words, the issue is not that the series is boring or that the acting is bad. On the contrary, many people find the show gripping. But some say the story leans too much on the idea of using force against bullying. At this point, we need to make one thing very clear in this video. We are not presenting this debate as our own opinion. We are only explaining why critics and viewers who watch the series are divided. Because most of the people who did not like it are not saying, the show is badly made. They are mostly saying, the method the show presents made me uncomfortable. For example, some reviews argue that the series effectively shows the problems within the school system, but when it comes to the solution, it turns into something too exaggerated and dangerously fantasy-like. So for them, the problem is not the acting or the pacing. It is the kind of justice the show presents to the audience. That is why Teach You a Lesson has become a series that is technically appreciated but debated because of its message. On the other hand, those who respond positively think the series should not be viewed as a realistic educational documentary, but more as a harsh action drama. According to these viewers, the show takes the very difficult real-life issue of school bullying and presents it through an exaggerated but entertaining genre style. So for them, this is not a production trying to offer a realistic solution. It is a story that gives the audience a dramatic reckoning. The action scenes are generally seen as one of the show's strongest sides. The fights, confrontations, and tense moments inside the school keep the audience engaged. Especially the scenes where Na Hwa-jin intervenes in events are considered among the most talked about and most shared parts of the series on social media. However, according to some critics, the series sometimes moves away from realistic drama and turns too much into an exaggerated action fantasy. This may not be a bad thing for everyone, because some viewers loved exactly that. But for those expecting a deeper, calmer, and more psychological school drama, Teach You a Lesson may feel too loud and too direct at times. On the acting side, the general reaction is more positive. Kim Moo-yul's toughness in the role, Lee Sung-min's weight, and the energy Ki-joo brings to the story have been praised in many comments. You could say the actors carry even the scenes where the series moves away from realism. So the criticism is aimed more at the script's approach, not the performances. In terms of story structure, the series is easy to watch because each episode focuses on different school problems. This also increases the binge-watch effect. After one episode ends, you become curious about what kind of case will be solved in the next one. This structure turns the show into a fast-consumed Netflix series rather than a heavy drama. But this format also has a downside. Some characters and some events could have been explored more deeply. Because the show moves quickly, certain stories may leave the audience feeling like they could have spent a little more time here. Especially the emotional side of the victimized characters sometimes remains in the shadow of the action. When we look at viewer reactions, the picture appears more positive. On Rotten Tomatoes, the audience score looks positive in the early stage, and on IMDb, the series has also attracted attention with a high user rating. Of course, these numbers may change over time, but as an early reaction, it can be said that curiosity and appreciation from viewers are strong. Overall, the most accurate sentence for Teach You a Lesson might be this: this series is not for everyone, but when it reaches its target audience, it works very effectively. If you enjoy intense Korean dramas, school bullying stories, fast-paced action, and confrontations that give a sense of revenge, this series will most likely pull you in. But if you are expecting a more realistic, more balanced, and calmer drama, some scenes may feel too exaggerated to you. Because Teach You a Lesson is not a series that moves forward with subtle messages. It says what it wants to say directly, shows what it wants to show harshly, and expects the audience to keep up with that high tempo. In the end, critics and viewers have not completely torn the series apart. In fact, many people have praised its gripping structure, performances, pacing, and action. The main objection from those who did not like it is not about the show's quality, but rather that the justice method it presents feels too harsh and uncomfortable. So the answer to the question, is Teach You a Lesson worth watching, is this: if you are looking for a Korean series on Netflix that starts quickly, creates conflict in every episode, has strong characters, and mixes the theme of school bullying with action, it is definitely worth giving a chance. But when you start this show, you need to know this: Teach You a Lesson is not just a school drama. It is a harsh, controversial, exaggerated revenge and justice story that still manages to keep the audience watching. So what do you think? Do you think Teach You a Lesson is truly a strong Netflix series, or did it become this talked about only because its subject was exaggerated? Do you like harsh and direct characters like Na Hwa-jin, or do these kinds of stories feel too over the top to you? Make sure to write your own opinion in the comments, because I think everyone will focus on a different point with this series. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for new Netflix series reviews. I'll see you in the next video.